You're grinding every day. Long hours, no backup, no accountability. That ends now. The Empower Solopreneur Mastermind gives you one simple advantage: a weekly power session that turns isolation into domination. Every Friday morning on Zoom, you'll get real coaching and real feedback to make real moves. Join a group of driven professionals in a program designed for solopreneurs and people working at home. Stop getting stuck. Start scaling. Seats are limited. Lock in yours today at modernobserver.com/empower-mastermind.
Across America, our lives are protected by the men and women of our armed services and our first responders. We're here to explore the challenges they face and say thank you for your service. Hello, we're here with Christian Betancourt, and we're going to talk about his time serving our country and what he went through. So, Christian, welcome to thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
So, to start out with, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, what branch of the service you served in, and what made you sign up.
Well, back in the year 2000, I ended up signing up with the National Army National Guard. And later on, I decided the reason why was because I had nothing else to do. I didn't know what to do with my life and decided to join the military. So in the year 2000, I ended up going to Oklahoma, Fort Sill, and then I trained with artillery, 13 Echo, which is fire direction specialist. And from there, went to AIT at the same time with basic training and graduated. And in the year 2001, it was the towers, when the planes crashed into the towers.
So, prior to 9/11, what was your focus in the National Guard? And actually, before we even get to that, for those of our listeners who aren't familiar, the National Guard doesn't have as big a profile as other branches of the military. Can you tell us a little bit about what the mission of the National Guard is?
The mission of the National Guard is to protect civilians.
All right. And so, what was your focus prior to 9/11?
The focus was to check every van that was coming through the Lincoln Tunnel, doing security checks, and maintaining integrity.
Is that before 9/11 or after?
This was after.
Okay, what was your focus before that?
Our focus?
Yeah.
Just training. Just training.
What was basic training like?
Basic training was pretty much obstacles that we worked as a team. And from there, we uh, gun range, and also, uh, training for ourselves, individual training, PT, which is physical training, push-up, sit-ups, 2-mile run. And that's pretty much what it was. And then AIT was all about books, learning, the craft of artillery.
All right. Now, obviously, you joined in 2000. You had no idea you would be on active duty so quickly, certainly. 9/11 changed everything. From there, you said you were essentially securing Manhattan.
Yes, we were we were in the Lincoln Tunnel, uh, making sure that all the vans were secured. There was no threat at all. And I was able to go to um, the platform in near 9/11, and you could smell death in that location. Um, it was a rough time.
Yes, it was. Having lived in New York City at that time, I can tell you it was amazing. I mean, it completely changed lives. Now, after that, you were deployed overseas as well, correct?
Yes. I was
So,
deployed to Baghdad, Iraq.
so tell us a little bit about your deployment. What was your mission and what were the conditions?
So we were there in the year 2004 of March, and our job was to become military police. We transitioned from artillery to military police, and before we got there, we had like about 30 days of training to be military police. And at that moment, we were doing convoy operations, going to IP stations, you know, making sure that the IP station was secured while our NCOs were inside doing accountability of weapons, accountability of police officers, and accountability of prisoners. And then from there, we move on to another an IP station.
All right. For those of our listeners not familiar, what's an IP station?
It's an Iraqi police station.
Okay. All right. So you were working alongside Iraqi police, you were training. What was your relationship with them?
My relationship was to be, I was a gunner. So I was outside as a sitting duck. But yeah, I was putting security, making sure that my vicinity was protected as well as other soldiers who were watching their perimeters.
All right. And over there, you did see your share of combat, didn't you?
Yes, correct. It was at Al Karama IP station, and it was in Sadr City, which is run by what's his name? Mutal Sadr. He's the leader of the Mahdi army, and we got there early in the morning. We pulled security while the NCOs were, doing their accountability. And my lieutenant at the time was received a call, and they said that if we didn't leave, we would get attacked. And my lieutenant said, "Well, come get it." And they came like maybe like 15 minutes after, and the first bomb started hitting us closer and closer as mortar attacks were coming in, RPGs, snipers, small arm fires, all kinds of stuff. We were there for a good 3 hours, and from there uh, they would change positions and shoot us on the north side, and then switch again to the east side and west side, and so on. So uh, there was a lot of gunfire. Uh, thank God nobody was harmed in that mission. Um, I was shot by um, near. I could hear the whistling coming by from the sniper fire. Ended up taking out that building of snipers with my 50 cal, and from there, um, there was a grenade that flew over my head about a foot over my head, landed on top of the Humvee, fell on the ground. I put my head down, and it exploded. And everybody thought I was dead, but I popped my head open, and they said, Slim's alive. They used to call me Slim because I was like 150 pounds or maybe less. And yeah, as soon as we were running out of ammo, so we ended up we had uh another unit coming in, and then we ended up trying to get we were all tangled up in the where there's like sectors of like walls and everything. So we ended up uh coming out, making a left turn. I was providing fire against the enemies, and then from there we got back, loaded up again, and came back in that fire.
Wow. So, what goes through your mind when you're under fire?
Just to protect the guys, protect the guys on your left and right. In my place, it was the guys below, the guy that was driving, my team leader and my driver, and that was my whole mission, was to protect them.
And that was just what you focused on. You
Yes, sir.
all right. Now, that's not the only time you saw combat, and you did lose your comrades over there, didn't you?
Yes. On June 4th, 2004, we lost two soldiers, Staff Sergeant Carbell and Specialist Duffy. They were both hit by an IED. And on June 5th, the following day, 2004, two of our guys got hit, which was Staff Sergeant Timoteo and Sergeant Doltz. And I was there on June 5th. We were about a couple miles up at an IP station. It was like 6 in the morning, and we heard an explosion. And they called us to do I'm sorry, to do to pull security. And we got there. We did 360 security. There was people from Times Magazine taking pictures, filming. They years after that, we ended up seeing some of our guys in Times Magazine, and it was horrific. They were one of the guys was giving mouth to one of them, to Staff Sergeant Timoteo, and Dulce was already done. He was already, you know, he was already dead, and that was that was probably the worst. But we continued the mission. You know, we kept staying motivated and to continue our mission.
Yeah, you said you stayed motivated. How exactly did you do that?
We just had to. There was no other choice. Especially with honoring our fallen. There was no way we were gonna quit.
Right. And how long did you serve in Iraq?
1 year.
And you also had a second deployment, correct?
Correct. That was in 2008, and we it was a high value detaining facility. Um, Stuff that I can discuss, but it was I was pretty much sergeant of the block, and I had three soldiers that would walk around making sure that the detainees were respected with dignity, and making sure that that they were fed, making sure they had their time to pray, making sure they had their time to take a break and watch TV and whatnot. So
Uh,
that mission was complete.
Can you tell us in terms of country where that was?
Baghdad, Iraq.
That was also Iraq. Okay. Now, when you came home, however, you still had another challenge to face, didn't you?
Yes, in 2010. Well, actually, while I was in Iraq, I was exercising, and one of the dumbbells from my right hand had fallen. And I'm like, "Ooh, that's weird." When I come back, I see a chiropractor, and the chiropractor's like, you know, working on me, working on me. He's like, "I don't think this is something of the back or a nerve or anything like that." So he says, "Go to the VA or make an appointment." They told me, I think I did like an MRI with contrast, and CAT scan. And they said that I had stage 2 to stage 3 brain cancer. It was called thalamic glioma.
And were they able to figure out what caused it?
No, no. It could have happened. in Iraq, the burn pits. It could have happened in 9/11 while I was near the site. So we don't know.
It could have been all of the above. So once you were diagnosed, what happened in terms of treatment?
In terms of treatment, I was given chemotherapy in Manhattan, New York at the VA and radiation in Brooklyn, VA. And from there began my journey of trying to figure out, I didn't know what cancer was. And, trying to research, find a medicine that could help me. And after 2000, the end of 2012, I ended up doing a fundraiser for a little girl. She was 3 years old. She had glioblastoma, and she ended up um, passing away before 8 days before we did the event. So the parents said that it was okay to do the event and under her name, and we decided, to with the fonts and everything to help them out. And the little girl's aunt told me about this cure in Canada called DCA. And from DCA, I ended up researching it. And my oncology nurse said, "Why not give it a try? You have nothing to lose." So I ordered the medicine online, came to my house. I prayed to God that this medicine would work and remove my tumor. And 5 months down the line, I ended up beating cancer. My tumor was gone. That is great.
It is. Now, you said DCA was a Canadian medicine. Was it not approved here in the US?
I'm not sure. I just took the information and just researched it and then just took it. I had nothing to lose, so why not?
Yes, absolutely. So now, prior to finding out about the DCS, how long between the time you were diagnosed and the time you found that medication?
It was probably like 2 years, maybe three, 2.5.
So for 2 years, you went through chemo, you went through radiation, all of the traditional, cancer treatments. How did you cope with
Doing fundraisers.
the doing fund yeah. How did you cope with all of that?
I used to call my tumor Timmy the tumor. So I was very humorous. And then when I came across DCA, I ended up, telling Timmy, you gotta go. You gotta go. So I used my humor to get by.
That's good. So when were you, when were you declared to be in remission?
June 19, 2013. That's when I beat cancer. They usually say after 5 years, then you could say that you beat it. But I say the moment that it was gone, it was the first day.
No. Alright, so
12 years now, 12 years cancer free.
nice. That's, of course, obviously life-changing. What lessons did you take from the struggle?
I looked at life in a different perspective. Yeah, I was more into helping others, creating, those fundraisers. And, in that time from the year 2010, well, actually way before that, I was always interested in making fundraisers, especially in Iraq. And I did a a toy drive in Iraq that was very successful. And in 2010, before I was diagnosed with cancer, I did a fundraiser for a student from my old high school that was going through cancer, testicular cancer, and we did an event for him. So it just kept going, and then I was diagnosed with cancer, and then I did more fundraisers. While I was doing chemo, I was throwing up and, you know, hosting the show. hosting the fundraiser, and then I would throw up again, host again, throw up, host again. You get my drift.
That's
So it was, I think I was very determined to make a difference, you know, um, and that's where I started doing fundraisers for like, um, what was it called? Uh, Rolling Thunder Chapter One. They, I was in, I was really in a bad place with my PTSD, and I was admitted to a 45-day program and for PTSD, and they took me in. This group, Rolling Thunder, came in. They fed us. As soon as the 45 days were out, I ended up doing a fundraiser for them, thanking them for what they were doing, helping veterans. And I helped them. I helped K9 Partners for Patriots. It's a nonprofit that helps veterans with service dogs. They get a free dog, and they do the training for free, which I think is remarkable. What they're doing, and huge difference for veterans too, because it's been known that service dogs have been very useful, and
yes. So you said you had had PTSD. Now that affects different people very differently. What did you go through with it?
I was going through nightmares and uh, dealing with depression, anxiety, uh, hypervigilance, irritability, all kinds of stuff. And there was times where I would like, fall asleep with my eyes open, and there was times where it got, I was getting that much anxiety, especially from, you know, because you want to avoid the outside when you're in that situation. And I didn't want to go out. I just wanted to stay home. And then it led me to, having, uh, I don't know if it's an addiction. I think I was having a lot of fun, going out, drinking. And it was just like every day but Monday. I don't know why, but I was drinking Jack Daniels, and it was all the time until I ended up deploying again in 2008, came back, drank again, and then I was diagnosed, and I stopped cold fish um, because I had the brain tumor.
All right, so you had the PTSD from your first deployment even before you went back.
Hmm.
So how did that affect your second deployment?
Didn't affect my second deployment. It was kind of like I was meant to be there, and as soon as we came back, it was like, okay, civilian life now. Um, to be with your brothers, you know, that are comrades, that are brothers, that are there with you all the time. You kind of, as soon as you transition from military to civilian life, it's not the same anymore.
And a lot of veterans have trouble with that transition. What services were available to you to help you with the transition?
So when I came back in 2009, I went to Dr. Martinez at the vet center, and he was talking to me, and I was like, you know what, this guy, he's never deployed before. Who is this guy? And I ended up, leaving, not coming back. And then I gave him another chance. And then from there, we went on 8 years straight doing therapy with him. And he got to a point where he was just like, I was having issues with my father and relationships, and decided, he's like, you know what? If you want to move to Florida, move to Florida, you know? And from there, I made a decision, and I ended up moving here to Florida.
So now you were undergoing treatment for PTSD while you were undergoing treatment for cancer.
Mhm.
So that must have been an incredibly stressful time for you. What coping mechanisms did you use?
I put everything on God, right? I put all my faith in God, and I was able to move forward and continue the tasks of going to therapy, getting my chemotherapy done, and that that he was the light that that removed that shadow. You know, it was such a life changing moment for me that I decided to rely on him.
Yeah, something like that usually is life-changing. So, going back to where we started, you said you joined the military initially because you didn't have anything to do. You didn't really have any purpose. Now, having gone through the military, having fought cancer, fought PTSD, how do you define your purpose now?
Well, in about a year and a half ago, my therapist now that I've seen since 2017, which will be, I think, 8 years. His name is Brian, and he told me, Christian, you should be a life coach. You'll definitely help a lot of veterans and make a difference. And I was like, oh, okay. So he told me about this guy named the Angry Therapist, and he and this other lady uh, are CEOs of this company called Lumia. And I decided, okay, I'm going to do it. And it was about a year long of courses and meeting with instructors and group sessions and stuff like that to learn, the key to be a great life coach. And I guess that was my purpose, to help others, to help veterans. So I started with having my own business called Battle Rider Life Coaching, and I've been helping veterans uh, one by one, um, and guiding them to their highest potential. And after, I say, after a couple of months, I started a podcast called Real Battles, Real People. And that's where I interview uh, veterans, life coaches, and people that have gone through cancer. And it's been such a blessing to talk with these people and to hear their stories, inspiring stories. And I think this is what I'm supposed to do, because I feel that God uses us as vessels to help others. So I 100% believe that.
Very true. So, with everything you've gone through, the general public gets most of its information about the military from Hollywood movies and television, from sound bites on news shows. What do you wish the general public understood about being in the military?
That's a good question. About being in the military, it's not for everyone. But if you feel it in your heart that you want to join the military, um, it has a significance of brotherhood, of being side to side if you're in combat. And that's the whole thing about it. And be able to complete all the missions and come back home as one. Doesn't happen all the time, but that's something that I do miss the military. I do. Um, After I was medically honorably discharged, I couldn't go back. By the time I felt better enough to go back, it was already too late. The age, you know,
Right.
requirement. But I was able to finish as a staff sergeant, and it was an honor to serve the military and to lead soldiers. As I followed orders, I also led, and to me, that I'll never forget. I'll never forget the guys, our fallen brothers that never came back, and they're always going to be remembered.
Have you been able to keep in touch with any of the people you served with?
Yes, every 2, maybe 3 years, we'll meet up as a reunion and go back to New Jersey and visit and come to our location somewhere and be able to, share stories, drink some beers, have some hamburgers, hot dogs, and just kick back and talk about the good and the bad.
Yeah. And that's something else that I don't think most civilians can understand is there are a lot of veterans that only feel comfortable talking about what they went through with other veterans because they have that shared reference point. What do you think civilians can do to help make the transition for veterans easier?
Mm. Can you say that one more time?
A lot of veterans will only discuss what they went through with other veterans because they have a shared perspective. They understand. Civilians being on the outside, the transition for veterans from military life to civilian life can be very difficult. What should civilians understand to help veterans make that transition easier?
I think it's more of sharing your story. There's a lot of veterans that don't share their stories. And since I've been going to therapy for 16 years, I've been more open and I've connected with civilians that they like, oh my God, I never I've been a huge patriot for veterans, but I never served. But I appreciate you guys. And those are the type of people I've run it into where I talk to them. And they love hearing their stories. They love it. Um, they appreciate it. And very thankful as well. Um, I don't look for things. The thanks goes to the guys that never came back.
All right, so before we wrap this up, if a young student came to you and said, I'm considering a career in the military, what advice would you give them?
My advice would be exercise. 'Cause there's a lot of push-ups and sit-ups and running, and now the whole army has changed and all their military uh, groups as well. But know what you're getting into, uh, and and take it with a grain of salt, and just complete every mission that's possible, you know, and be able uh, to take schools for promotions, take schools, and if it's not for you, if you're gonna stay in for 4 years, then it's not for you. But for those that are gonna stay in longer, just continue serving. And to me, it was an honor to serve the military. So
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to tell our listeners?
for especially for veterans that have not been able to seek therapy, therapy is awesome. Therapy is so uh, it is so relaxing to talk to somebody, to a stranger, and especially with someone that you're comfortable with. It's very important. I suggest also the Bat Center. Um, they're easy to talk to. My therapist is actually an Army paratrooper, which I got lucky because he's an amazing person. And we just talk about different things about uh, uh, dads and parenthood and marriage and what's happening now, and then we talk about the stuff from before, but we discuss about present stuff as long as the past stuff. But um, I suggest that you guys take time to see a therapist or either at the VA or the vet center. Everybody else, it would be to uh, if you want to join, think about all the different branches of the military and look at each one and look at what fits you best. And, you know, that's pretty much.
All right. Well, Christian, it's been great talking to you, and thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
You've been listening to Thank You for Your Service on the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can catch every episode as well as the rest of the network at exvadio.com, the Apple Podcast app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts. We'll see you next time.